Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode here at Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes, and I am the Chief Sales Sergeant at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, the one thing that we believe above all else, our mission, if you will, is that hope is not a sales strategy. And so we are here to help salespeople to give them the mission of turning that around for themselves. Because believe it or not, we rely on hope so much in the field of sales. I've been studying sales for a decade now, implementing systems across my entire sales cycle. I still find myself falling into hope more often than I should. And so we're here just as much for you as for me, multiple times, as often as we can get out there with guests each and every week to help you remove hope from your strategy, bringing the lessons from the battlefield into business so that we can increase the performance of salespeople, the results they're getting from their pipelines, and of course, the results that their teams are getting as well. Now, in this series, we have over 80 episodes, I believe, at this point, of bringing in Hall of Fame speakers, best-selling authors, people that are managing sales teams, not just domestically here in the United States, but internationally as well. Folks that are out there every single day asking the question, how can I remove hope from how I sell, from how I serve, from how I deliver value to my clients? And it's my commitment that on every single one of these episodes, we will deliver a sales system to you. On what part of the pipeline? I don't know. That's why we have guests on, because it's amazing. The more I do this, the more I realize that you can build sales systems for everything across a sales pipeline, from how we prospect, how we gather information and data, how we reach out, how we drive great conversations, how we deliver value before we even sell what it is that we're selling. And of course, how do we develop long-term customers that deliver referrals on a predictable, consistent basis? Every single aspect of that you can build a system for, and of course, update those systems, keep them active, share them with your teams to learn from what the very best are doing out there. Now, when we talk about learning from the very, very best, whether you're part of a sales team or whether you're an entrepreneur out there just trying to figure out how do I wrap my head around this new thing called sales so that I can actually run a great business, you're going to focus on the people that are out there performing extremely well, whether they're on your team, whether they're in your industry. These are the people that are out there absolutely killing it. They're closing deals. They're driving pipeline velocity through, which means they're moving people from one stage of their pipeline to another, to another, to another faster than their peers. These are the folks that myself and a lot of people out there, whether you're on a team or not, love to study because there's something to be learned from them. How do we get into the top 5% of sales teams? There's a lot of psychology involved in that. There's a lot of things that we need to understand about not only what it is we sell, but who it is that we're reaching out to and how we're doing that. So when I run into people that are really knee deep in the psychology of sales, what it takes to use what's between the most valuable real estate that we have, which is a real estate between our ears. As a salesperson, that's the most valuable thing you got going for you. That's the resource that cannot be replaced. So when I run into people that are studying that and how it applies to the field of sales, love to have them on the show. Love to have them share what it is that they're learning. What are they seeing from those top percentage of salespeople that the rest of us can learn? That's why it's my pleasure to bring on the show all the way from Germany today. We get a lot of international people on Bulletproof Selling because, hey, sales is an international sport. Please welcome to the show, Miss Susie Mathieson. Susie, welcome to Bulletproof Selling.
Hey there, thank you so much for having me.
And so, Susie, I know it's afternoon here in the U.S., nighttime there in Germany, but I know that salespeople are probably listening right now, no matter where they are in the world, trying to figure out, how do I get into that top 1%? How do I get into the President's Club? How do I get that trophy, that cruise, that trip to Maui or to the Mediterranean, wherever they send salespeople in Europe? I'd love to know then your background. How did you end up studying the top percentage of salespeople and what it is that you're delivering these days to help them understand, hey, this is something that if we can learn how, anyone can be in that top couple percentage of salespeople in their industry. So let's hear about your journey.
Yeah, happy to share that with you. So as you can probably hear, I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living in Germany for 10 years. And I am one of those rare people who actually chose to go into sales. I know that lots of people say they fell into it, but I actually chose it. And the thing that enticed me were all of those trips, right? So not only the trips that you could win, but also the trips that you could take your customers on and that hospitality side of things as well. So I was hooked in my early 20s and worked in many trade sales, B2B sales organizations, and absolutely loved it over the years. And that's kind of how I got into it. And without boring you about all of the history of what I've done, about 3 years ago, I realized that whilst I also love selling, I really, really love helping people hit their targets. And so that's how I became a sales trainer and coach. As I said, based in Germany right now. And it was whilst I was kind of making that transition from sales performer, sales manager through to the trainer and coach, that a friend of mine said, you need to speak to a guy called Mark Ridley. He is one of the authors of a book called The Salesperson's Secret Code. And I did that, and I absolutely loved the concept that they had, which is basically, how can we distinguish between the top salespeople and what can we do to get there ourselves? And so I went away and studied it, spoke a lot to Mark, and got accredited in the Salesperson's Secret Code system, which is one of many psychometric tests that we can take as salespeople to learn more about ourselves. So that was a really whistle-stop tour through my sales journey. I hope that was okay.
Yeah, it's great. And with the work that you're doing now, tell us about the type of teams that you work with. Are they international? Are they in one segment of an industry? Who do you work best with?
So I actually work with some of the big names. I work here in Germany with one of the largest telecommunication companies over here, the magenta coloured one, if anybody's heard of them before. And I do everything from training groups of salespeople virtually and face to face. But right now, I'm actually working on individual coaching. So I get to spend 5.5 days with individuals, with key account managers, and actually get to be in the sales meetings and get to add my bits to that as well. So it's really, really good fun. So that's just one example. But I also work with companies in Australia, companies in the United States, all over the place. If they speak German or English, they're my types of clients.
I love it. I love it. And now talk to us about the salesperson's code, because although you didn't invent the system, obviously you believe in it. Companies are finding enough value in it to hire you to teach it to them. So give us an outline. What does that actually help me do as a salesperson to understand my psychometric style of selling?
Yeah, sure. Happy to tell you a bit more. So basically, Ian Mills, Mark Ridley, Tim Chapman, and Ben Laker wrote a book because they wanted to really find out if salespeople were born with it or whether it was something that you could learn. And so they really studied loads of sales performers in different verticals in different countries, and they came up with basically a code, a secret code that defined the top 5% of the salespeople that they spoke to and interviewed. And they realized that there were 5 attributes that kind of stood them out compared with their colleagues who were maybe just mediocre performers. And they wrote a book about it, first of all. So they talked about those 5 attributes in the book, and the book is called The Salesperson's Secret Code. They also, what I find really helpful is they created a psychometric test which anybody can take, where you can answer a series of questions. It takes about 20 minutes, and it will then pit you or show you against those benchmark top 5% of sales performers. So that's helpful in itself, right? If you can see where you are, then you're going to be able to make tweaks. But the thing I like the most about the psychometric test is it not only does that, but it also gives you really helpful advice as to what you could do based on your score to actually become better. It focuses purely on beliefs. So it doesn't look at tactics. Yeah, it doesn't look at what to do. It looks at the things you can do to really start to change your beliefs. And that's what I really enjoy about it.
And so you mentioned 5 attributes. Now, as someone that, is always trying to benchmark myself against what the best are doing, if you can remember them, and I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, we didn't discuss this, but what are some or all of those attributes so that the salespeople listening get an idea about what are the belief mindsets that are really going to be key to my success?
Yeah, happy to do that. So it's the first one is about fulfillment. So what drives me, what motivates me to get up out of bed in the morning, and what is the reason I do that? Then there's control. So do I have more of a victim or a hero mentality, and how's that affecting my day to day? Then there's resilience. So that's looking at whether I'm more of a work hard philosophy, or I have more of a work smart approach to my work. Then there's influence. Influence, that's got a little bit of a battle connection as well. Am I a gorilla, like the big animal, or a gorilla? And then finally, there's communication. Am I more lightning or am I more thunder? So they're the 5 things that gets checked, that gets tested in this, with some really good practical advice in there as well.
And I imagine like a lot of salespeople are tracking a lot of different areas across their personal and professional lives. I mean, the people that I've met in sales, and I'm sure you'd echo this as well, the folks that are really dedicated to getting better don't just get better in sales. They're looking at how do I make everything in my life as good as I can make it? Because I know if my health falls off, I'm not going to have the energy that I need to make those calls, to drive those meetings, to have those visits, to deliver that value. And if all I'm doing is my health, well, then I'm not filling my pipeline, so it's a constant balancing act that we have to engage in. So with all the salespeople that you get to work with, I'm curious to know then, this is a question we ask every single one of our guests, where do you see them relying on hope a little more than they should? And feel free to tie it back to one of those 5 attributes if you like, because those are already clear in your mind. But I just love to know, where are you seeing that happen? Hope more than they should.
It's fascinating because I have definitely been a victim to my own hope sometimes as well. So I can completely and utterly empathize with this. But I would say that the moment when you give the control away is when you lose that hope, or when you start to rely on the hope, really. So, sorry, you rely on the hope more because you've given the control away. So that could be at any point in the process, but typically you'll find it maybe at the beginning. So you maybe made decisions about something that's going on, in your head that's actually not. For example, they're just not going to pick up the call. They're not going to answer me. Or nearer the end of the process when there's that decision being made. So, and I remember a guest of yours a few weeks ago talking about this, when you've presented, you've done that like great proposal, and then you just get ghosted and you don't hear from them again. So they're the 2 places that I see the hope happening the most is yeah, but we had a really great conversation, so they're going to call me back, or whatever it might be. So they're the 2 stages I would have identified. So giving away control.
Giving away control, I find that happens in my early stages of sales, when I was just told, go out and find customers. No guidance whatsoever on how to build a list, how to qualify, what made a good customer, what made a decision maker in any of these organizations that I was selling into. I was giving away control even before I picked up the phone, because I was giving control over what I was going to earn. I didn't know how to prioritize. This account might be worth, a couple grand. This might be worth 100 grand, but I didn't know the difference. So I was giving control from the very beginning. A lot of salespeople do, until we learn better, or until we're taught better. And then, like you said, even during the conversation and even afterwards, I find a lot of salespeople, because it's always great to get referrals, but how many times do we give away control to that process when our clients say, well, we'll get back to you, or we'll give you some names here in a little while. I can't think of any right now. The whole gamut of things that we hear when really a wall is being thrown up to more referrals. So giving away control, that could happen just about anywhere in the sales cycle. And what I heard from you, and I'd love to hear any other areas you feel like really pop up, is right when we're in the middle of a conversation and we've said, hey, we'd love to move this forward, and they said, great, we'll think about it. But eventually it ends up just being a ghosted call. Where else do you see that really playing out inside of a sales cycle, the salesperson giving up control?
Well, I do think it can happen anyway. I mean, the place that I see it most evident is actually when you're reviewing what's happened after the call, right? So that's when you really, when you're reviewing the losses. So for example, some of the, let's call them red flags, that would come up for me as a sales manager would be the person who says, yeah, I didn't hit my target this month because I've got a really bad sales patch. Okay, that is like red flag for me. That's kind of giving away control to the process. In COVID time, so we've all gone through this pandemic, it's the sales rep that comes and says, can't do anything, COVID.
Oh, right. Okay, so they're actually, it sounds like they're giving up self-agency. They're giving up the ability for them to set their own destiny.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, it appears at the end of the conversation when you're reviewing, but actually it happens right at the beginning normally. So it's you can spot it in those people that kind of say, oh yeah, well, I'd like to do it, but they might not, they might not answer the phone, they might not do it. They're already protecting themselves from the outcome that could be a bad one. And so the control is never in their hands. That control is actually already been given away to somebody else to make that decision, to decide whether to talk to me or not, or whatever it might be. So it's a fascinating topic. I mean, I'm sure you can start to understand why I kind of got into it and dug deeper into it.
Absolutely. And it's something that ties in so clearly to the military and to folks that are out there. I mean, think of first responders, paramedics, fire rescue people, all the folks that are out there. They have to believe at their root, at their core, that they have the ability to affect the outcome of the situation they're about to step into.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're relying on hope and they're really turning it all over to the other person or to the situation, if you will. And you're right, when salespeople do this, they don't tend to succeed. And I think it's the reason that so many salespeople, because we're all thrown into the deep end of the pool in some shape, form, or fashion, we figure out how to swim. It means that we're deciding we're not going to drown. By hook or
Yeah.
by crook or by something, we're going to peel out of this. We're going to learn to swim, get to the edge of the pool, make ourselves successful. So let's build a sales system around this. It's a topic that we haven't actually covered yet. We focus a lot on tactics here, but what we're talking about, Susie, is psychology. How do we maintain control of our belief that we have the ability to affect the outcome of not only this call or this deal, but our careers as salespeople? So it's going to cover a lot of territory. I have an odd feeling. So let's dive into it. When we talk about these types of systems builds in the military, systems for everything, acronyms for everything, because
Yeah.
hey, that's just what we do. So we use the acronym TRIM here at Bulletproof Selling. The T in TRIM is the trigger element. Now, if I'm a salesperson and maybe I'm 20 years in, maybe I'm 2 days in, but I realize that it is going to be critical for me to maintain control of the belief that I have control. I have the ability to put more people in my pipeline. If I get 100 no's, that's great, actually, because I have 1,000 people that could say yes if I've been prospecting well. So control is critical to not only belief, but to what we say, to success in our pipeline. Where do we trigger this? Is it as soon as we get up in the morning? Is it something that we do annually? Is it something we do just when we're getting ready to start prospecting? When's the best spot for us to just trigger a system that reminds us, that puts us back in control?
So I think I was thinking as well about this a little bit and thinking, well, the trigger, I think it's about listening out for the triggers as well. So I think
Mm,
there's a double use of that word, which is kind
okay.
of handy. So,
Yeah.
are you going into work? Are you, first of all, what's going on with your language? Are you saying, I've got to get up, I've got to go to work today? You're
Mm,
immediately giving the control to work rather than taking that choice for yourself. So instead of looking for triggers like that of, are you hitting the snooze button when you wake up in the morning? That could be one. Or are you going in already defeated? So, my quota's too high, this pricing strategy is not going to work, my product's too old, the competition's so much better, I haven't got enough leads, the leads I'm getting are really bad. There's all these kind of things that could be going on in your head,
hmm
or the conversations that you might be having. So that would be where I would start, is when you notice it. And the most obvious one is language, negative language, right? So I can't, I have to, I'm wrong, those kind of things. That's where I would say that's where you can start making a difference immediately. So that would, for me, be the trigger.
So that's the mindset trigger of language, and that's something that we can control throughout the day. It doesn't just happen in the morning; it could happen anytime during the day, anytime on the weekend, anytime during vacation. So
Yeah.
if I'm paying attention to language now, what are some ways that I can at least get my hands wrapped around taking control over my career success as a salesperson? Because it could encompass the entire pipeline, but where do I start with understanding? Yeah, this really is up to me.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's the first thing. So what an example I use, it's actually not from sales, but it's from parenting, because I work with a lot of parents, right? And in home office, that environment where you're working from home, we've had many things to battle with. We've had the little children who've wanted mum or dad's attention, and that's been something that's we've all seen happening. And what typically happens is, you'll say as a parent, you'll say, I can't play with you right now, I have to work, right?
Sure.
You're giving that control to work. Now, if you just change that language and say, I would love to come and play with you once I finish my work,
Hmm.
you're making the choice to finish the work, right? So your child is hearing, I enjoy my work, but I also enjoy playing with you and spending time with you. So that would be an example kind of from home life, which I think that most people, when I talk to, they're able to really kind of empathize with, or even remember themselves in those situations. And with work, hey, I get to go up and earn money today.
hmm
I get to go into work today. I'm so excited about seeing my colleagues. I'm so excited about having that phone in my hand. Those kind of things are really, things that you can do immediately, is change how you're talking about something. yeah, I might have a really bad patch, or I might be a lower performer, but I'm going to get better today. That is positive language that you can say, and you can, I mean, we hear about this kind of fake it till you make it approach. There's varying theories as to whether it's good or not for us, but it does help. Changing that language is super helpful in going and addressing your day and making it work for you.
Those are amazing triggers. So if we're taking care of language, we're taking care of mindset. You're right. The fact that we get up, if you have the energy and an internet connection to go up and sell whatever it is that you're selling, you're better off than a good portion of the world. And if you're not passionate about what it is you sell, talk to some people that it's impacted, because I completely agree with you. If we're not in alignment with the value that we provide, if we can't show up on the phone knowing that what I'm about to talk to you about is better than whatever else you had on your schedule, then it's going to come across in language. We're not taking control of the situation. And people love to be around people that are passionate. And it's a very human thing. The more excited we are about what we do, the more magnetic that becomes. So great trigger elements. Now let's take it a little bit into the tactical, because I'm a salesperson. I'm showing up each day. I understand that I need to have control over what's going to happen in the next 12 hours when I'm on shift, when I'm on the phone, when I'm in the vehicle, going out to visit clients, for those of us that are getting to do that again. What's the repeatable process here? That's the R in trim, making this thing repeatable. Mm-hmm. What are the things I need to do as soon as I check in, as soon as I sit down, log into my CRM, open up my client notebook? What are those couple of steps, 3 to 4? We don't have to make it real deep, but 3 to 4 steps that remind me or put me back in control over what's going to happen in my shift.
I love that. And I think there's 2 ways we can look at this here. So the first way I would say is around kind of thinking about mantras. So a little bit like we talked about it already is, I've got this, I can do this, I'm going to affect change today. That would be one of them. The other one would be to feature reflection into our daily routine as well. So that would be something that we could repeat. And a little tip here is, often us salespeople, we're a bit hard on ourselves. And so we're like, oh, what could have gone better in that call? My approach is to actually look at what went really well and then find more. So ask yourself the question, what went well? Okay, they answered the phone, right? That could be what went well, right?
Yeah.
But then to dig deeper, and instead of then flipping, which is that classic coaching question, what could you have done better? No. What else went well? I spoke for 30 seconds. What else went well? They said hello, whatever it might be. That think about what went well, because what we forget to do, or what we often do as human beings, is we go into that improvement mode, which of course, growth mindset, we want to get better. I understand it. But what can happen is we can become too self-critical. And so this way we can really give ourselves self-praise and go, what are you going to do next time then? What are you going to repeat next time? So that is repeat in itself, is what can I repeat? What can I do well again? So there's that bit first of all. And then if you'd like it, I know you've got your trim, but in the book, there is the 3 E's as well, which can really help. And I think this is also something that we can repeat. So the first thing is engage. Okay, so with what can you engage? What can you control or master in the situation? Okay, so let's imagine it's a first phone call that you're going to be making. I can decide and engage to pick up that call, and I can decide what words I'm going to use, right? That's engaging with it. I can do this, right? Yes, we might have been given a target. Yes, we might have been given a list of people to call, but we can still engage with that list. We can decide who to call, when to call, what to say. That's all within our powers, and we forget that sometimes. So that's the first E. Then it's affect. What change can I affect? So affecting change or circumstances in the environment. So you just said about us looking forward to going back into work, right? If you know that you bounce off other people, you can actually go into the office and work from the office if that's something that you really enjoy doing, right? You can affect a change. Nobody is telling you, or in a lot of situations, nobody is telling you anymore that you need to be working from home. If you've got an office available and you bounce off people, you could make that decision to take that 30-minute drive to go into work and do that, right? That's within your power. And then it's about what can I evolve? So evolving new mindsets for future success. So again, repeating, what needs to evolve here? What can I be doing? What can I be learning from myself? Thinking about that growth mindset. So that's the 3 E's, but I think actually those 3 E's work quite well with repeat in your model as well.
Absolutely. And the last one, evolve, flows right into the I in trim, which is improve. So we
Yeah.
realized really quickly on every battlefield that I was ever on that if we didn't improve what we were doing, our results were going to get less. And so a salesperson that had a great system in 2019, if they didn't improve what they were doing in 2020, even though the world changed, they were going to get less results. So we all had to learn to adapt, improvise, and overcome, as we said in the U.S. Marines. So I'm curious to know then if we've got this system in place for how do we take back control over our own mindset, over our careers, how am I going to improve this? What's a strategy that you have to help us evolve after a call or after a day where maybe we didn't make any sales? Maybe it was a lot of voicemails. Maybe it was a lot of unanswered emails. How do I make sure that I'm improving what I'm doing and still maintaining control, even when I'm not getting the results that I'm after?
Great question, because when you're defeated, it can feel really just rubbish, can't it? So that was a very British word, isn't it? Rubbish, sorry. So but yeah, there's a few things you could look at improving. Is it the planning? Is it the time of day that you're making those calls? Could I be doing this more in the mornings, or am I not getting through to anybody? I always hear this trick: if you're trying to get through the gatekeeper, call really early in the morning before he or she has arrived at work, right? It's a way of getting through. You're taking control of the next action in that, and you're trying. You might not get through, but who knows, you might. What about improving your curiosity? How can you be more curious? Are you asking good questions? Could you find out more? If you were to ask yourself a few key questions about that person you just spoke to or didn't speak to, what would you want to know about them? Maybe it's as simple as improving your call rate. Perhaps it's, hey, I did 20 calls today, I'm going to do 21 tomorrow. Maybe it's as simple as that. That can be a good starting point, especially if you're early on in your career. I appreciate there is a quality versus quantity discussion, absolutely. But if you're starting out, this can be a really good place to start. Let's just make calls. Make one more than you did yesterday. That's a really good improvement. Improving your listening skills. Could you, again, a bit like curiosity, could you repeat back what people said to you? Could you get some feedback from colleagues, from managers about that one? Maybe it's improving assertiveness, showing that you're, being a bit bolder, asking those more difficult questions, or being a bit more, I'll say bold again, courageous with your assertions. I get the impression that this isn't really the thing for you, actually calling some things out. Or maybe it's about faster follow through as well. So that could be faster reaction times or how you're responding, but it could be about the speed something's going through the pipeline that you could look at improving as well. So
those are amazing improvements. So it sounds like you have all those stockpiled, by the way, which is why you get paid to do what you do. Because I can tell that if I sat down with a challenge, you'd be like, okay, Sean, here's 80 different ways to improve this. And while that can seem overwhelming, all the things that Susie just told us, trying to implement them all at once, that might overwhelm anybody, no matter how great a salesperson you are. I think the key is to remember that you only have to choose one in any given time period. Maybe you get 5% better this week in how fast you respond, or 5% better in how bold you are. Those small incremental changes do add up over the course of a year. This is something that I actually talk about. I'll be in Nashville, Tennessee tomorrow, actually, Susie, delivering a keynote to a group of folks in the textile rental industry. One of the things I always tell them is if you get 5% better every week at the end of the year, because 5% compounds on 5%, just like a portfolio does, you'll be 1,200% better. Your pipeline is going to reflect that. Your revenue is going to reflect that. So if we've got this great sales system in the build now, we've got the trigger element, making it repeatable, making it improvable. Now, this is something that's going to be interesting because we're not talking about driving straight revenue through. The M in trim is making this measurable. But how are we measuring something that is almost entirely psychological? How in control I feel of my career, of my pipeline, of my day? How would you recommend that we begin to measure whether this system is effective for us? Because we're taking time to do it. I need to make sure I'm seeing results. How do I measure this as a salesperson that's very logical and metrics driven?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think the first of all is the obvious ones, right? So if you're seeing a change in number of pickups, length of conversations, time to close, if you're at that end of the pipeline, there's all sorts of things you can measure there, as well as improve revenue margin, those kind of things, improve share of wallet if you're in a B2B business. There's lots of things that you can measure quite quickly, but I do think there's another thing, which is this, right? I'm just pointing at my heart here, which is measuring your feelings and measuring how confident you're feeling about these things, and really how much control you're feeling that you're having in situations. So to bring it back to the book and the psychometric test a little bit there, they say, the authors have realized that if you always control everything, that's also not a good idea, because then you're going to be taking responsibility for things you really shouldn't be. So what you want to be looking at is you want to be looking at having approximately 78% of the time control over your situations, and accepting that 22% of the time you haven't got that. So if you are noticing that you are giving blame to things, if you notice that you are talking about how the rain is affecting your day-to-day far too much, then you probably haven't got that balance of 78-22, which sounds really obscure, those two numbers, but it's explained in the book what that's about. So it may just be that you notice a shift in the way that you're taking control of more situations, that you're realizing that you can affect something. And of course, you can measure it by taking the test again, because the test is only a snapshot in time, right? So you could take the test and then 9 months later, you could take it again and see that needle having moved, I would assume. So yeah, that's another way of measuring it as well, if you wanted to go back to the psychology a bit more.
And so we've got the sales system built. You mentioned the salesperson's code again. You mentioned the test. So let's give people an opportunity to get deeper into that world. Where do we go to find out more about that? Because obviously the information that we've gotten here is good enough to immediately implement. I bet there's a lot of things out of that book and out of the test that as a salesperson I could learn and really dive into quickly and get results from. So how do we get deeper into that world? How do we get access to the test? Tell us where to go next.
Yeah, so if you would like to read the book, it's available on Amazon. So you can just search in your local Amazon store for The Salesperson's Secret Code. And the authors are Ian Mills, Mark Ridley, and there's a couple of others there as well, but that should be enough to find it. It's also available as an audio book, and that's how I enjoy consuming my books normally as well. If you would be interested in the psychometrics, then you can get in touch with me. I'm an accredited secret code practitioner. That sounds terribly posh, doesn't it? So you can get in touch with me. The best way to find me is probably via LinkedIn on Susie Mathieson. If you look my name up, then you should find me. But my company is also called The Small Stuff, and my website is thesmallstuff.de, because it's based in Germany. So you can find out more about the secret code on there as well, and I can set you up with a test. Be very happy to do that.
Amazing, Susie. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I mean, all the great ideas that we've gotten today, in addition to the book and the test, I think that's something that a salesperson is going to find a lot of value in. So for all of us here at Bulletproof Selling, make sure that you're following us on LinkedIn and on YouTube, where all of these conversations are archived. And of course, if you're listening to us right now on the treadmill, in the vehicle, on the way to see a prospect, or you're just driving home from closing that big deal, you're probably listening to us. So, hey, it's iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts can be found. And for more sales systems, just like the one you heard today, to help you remove hope and replace it with certainty, make sure you're checking out our resources over at bulletproofselling.us. Well, Sean Rhodes here. Susie, it was a pleasure serving the sales community alongside you. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.